Hello to you all my viewers, welcome to another Geonodes daily series tutorial where we'll recreate this awesome effect that you see here, including the materials. I'm going to try this new approach, adding the materials also. Important to note, I switched to Blender 3.2 Alpha, and it's important to have this version because I'm going to use the duplicate elements node, a new addition to geometry nodes. So this will be a use case for that cool new node. And like I said, we will recreate this awesome effect. Before we start, I want to give a big thank you to all of you that are supporting this channel by purchasing the project files, and also a big thank you for all my subscribers, all the people that are commenting on the videos or that are giving me a like. That's really helping the channel. So let's get started. And the first thing first, we want to generate the letters of this effect. So I'm going to do just that. For that, I'm going to use a string to curves. I'm going to plug this node here. And one thing that I want to do is add a color to this node that you see here. Let's make it green so it's easy to find it. I'm going to switch to the group tab because we are going to actually use this here to expose values to the stack. So how is this working? You can simply drag something to this empty socket here, and it will appear outside, and you can control the parameters here. So let's do a default string. Let's do this duplicate elements. Okay, Control C, Control V here. So now we have a text. Let's do a center alignment for this. And for now, we are going to leave it as is. You can type a tooltip here, and you hover over the element, you'll get it like you see here. I will probably not bother to rename and to trip everything for this tutorial because I want to keep things fast as possible. But I just wanted to show you at the beginning how you can do that. Excellent. Let's now turn this into a nice mesh. So let's do a curve to mesh, and that allows us to add a profile. So if we plug a circle here and reduce the radius quite a bit, let's output it here, and now we can do something like 0.1 here or even 0.01, something like this. We have this nice text. Let's reduce the number of points. We don't need so much stuff going on. The next thing we need is a material. So let's do a set material, and I prepared here in advance some materials, so we can use any of them. Let's do the blue material, and if we switch now to material preview, we get to see our text in its full glory, especially if we cut out the extra stuff on the screen. So let's leave it like this for now. And one more thing that I want to add, it's that duplicate elements node that you can find here in the geometry tab. So we have this control that will allow us to control how many times we duplicate, and it's important to choose the right domain for this. So given the fact that the output of here is instance, we have to choose here the instance. And as you can see, by playing with this value, at 1 we have 18 instances because we have 18 letters. And if we do 2, we have 36, then 54, and so on and so forth, as you can see here. Awesome. That will be our first module. So let me do a frame here. Select this one, G to move, and we plug it in this frame. So now we have a nice input. let's expose this parameter as well. And as you can see, it will take as a default the value that you plug. There was here when you plug it. I don't want such a big maximum. Let's do 100. And that's excellent. Now we have the base of our effect. So the next point I want to tackle is creating the starting position. It will be nice to rearrange these in a stack. So that's is going to be really cool to see how to make. And that's our next stop. Excellent. For that, I'm gonna add a line, and I'm gonna take the position from that line and use it on this thing that we are creating here. So if we want to use the position, let me make some room. We will need a geometry set position node, and this way we can easily change the position of our entire setup. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's add a transfer attribute node that will allow us to take the position from this geometry, the line that we are creating here, that it's looking like this, by the way, for now. Let me plug it here and switch this to solid. It's looking like this line. So we want to take this position from here and use it for our line. So if this is a position, that means it's a vector. We are going to use the index as a reference point. And for the attribute, you can just drag a noodle and write position and plug it here. You can find also this node into the input category, by the way. So let's see what happens if we plug this one into the position here, into this set node. As you can see, let me cut this and switch back to material preview. We get this stuff going on because we indeed took the position, but there are a few problems. This node is going to generate, first of all, only 10 position because this is the count that we have here. And it's going to offset everything by 1 meter. So let's make this one like smaller so we can see what's going on. So if we put 5 to this, we only get 5 numbers here, 5 position. But we would like to have as many position as we have letters here. So how can we do that? Well, we have this amount of duplication, but we need something else from here because we have 5 duplication of this, but each instance has a number of letters. So let me take this node, Control C, Control V, bring it here. Let's create a new group here, so it's easier for us to work with. And now let's do something. If we plug this one here, we will get like 5 because we have 5 duplication for this geometry. So how can we get the number of letters? Well, we have in the string text category a node called string length. And if we plug this here, it's going to give us the length of this string. That is, if we hover over this, 18. So what we actually need from here is, let me make a little bit of room. By pushing these nodes here, we need to multiply these two values. Switch this one to multiply, and let's take the number of letters from each string and multiply it by the number of time we duplicated the entire setup and plug this one here. And if we look at this output, we get 90. But things are still not going the way we want, because everything just gets stuck on top of each other. And we would like to get this setup here, the text that we get here, duplicated on top of each other and not every instance. So how can we do this? Well, we can play with this parameter here, the index. So if we go to input and take the index and we plug the index here, nothing happens. But we can control this entire thing by just adding another math node and switch this one to modulo. And we want to modulate by the number of instances that we have here. So once we did this, we are starting to get close to what we want. But we still don't get what we needed. Why? Because we have to play with this final position here. So let's do a vector math, plug this one here, and let's take the entire thing that we did here and add it to the position. And as soon as we do this, we get what we wanted. And now we have this value that controls just how far apart these things are. So let's expose this value from here. I want to do a combine XYZ and expose only the Z value here. And let's give it a default of, let's say, 0.05. And let's start at 0 for minimum and maximum at 1. So now we have this thing, and if we hover over it and press backspace, we can put the default value that we defined here. So now we have this very nice setup that it's giving us some original position. Let me put this node here, and let's move on to the fourth point. We want to do a random spreading for this positioning. So how can we do this? Okay, let me select these nodes, plug it here, and let's play a little bit with this offset. And how do we want to play with this offset? Let's add a random value to it. So let's say random value here, and switch this one to vector and plug it into the offset. And immediately we see something happening. Now we have these values that we can play with to get whatever offset we want for our entire setup. So something like this would look nice. And now we want to do something with this. We want to have a way to switch between this and this. So how can we do that? Well, let me show you a simple and easy way. We can add a mix RGB node, plug it here. Let's say this is the second value, and let's put this one to black. That will mean 0, 0, 0. So at 0 we have original, and at 1 we have the displaced position. So now this factor can be used to control this animation, and we will play with it a little bit later. But before we do that, I want to add some animation to this entire setup. And what I want to do is make the letter, like you saw in the demo, wiggling a little bit in all directions. So how can we achieve that effect? Well, we want to add something to this random wiggle, because we want the letter to stay put when they are in this position and only be affected by the wiggle when they are in this position. So we want to play with this input. So let's do a vector math, and we want to add something here, a procedural way to generate a wiggle. So how can we do that? Well, let me first of all input this node, the frame, and this frame will allow us to achieve just that effect. So what happens if we input this frame directly here? We get this. Basically, our geometry is just gonna disappear because we are going to push this value to infinity. So we want a control for this. We will want, first of all, a way to control the speed. So let's do, for example, a multiply by 0.1. And then we want to make this organic cyclic motion. And an easy way to do that is to use a sine function from a math node. And now we get this effect that you see here. Let me activate the overlay so you can easily see. So that will be the base of what we want to do with this. But we want some more control over this stuff. And how can we get that control? Well, let's use a map range, and I'm gonna switch this one to a vector. And once I did this, let me decide on an input range, and that will be from -1 to 1 because this is what the sine function outputs. So let's do a control click to get this noodle from there to here and plug this one here. And I'm gonna put it in this frame. So now we can control with the output from here where do we want, how far we want this to move. So let's do something like a small value. So now we have something, but it's not enough. I want to add some variation to this entire thing. And there are a few things that we can do with the random node, of course. So let me do a vector random value. And I'm gonna use a vector math and switch it to multiply and add this random value. So let's do a value from -1 to 1, for example. And if we do this, as you can see, letter starts to move by themselves. But there is something else that I also want to do here. I want to add the randomness to this speed value. So how can we do this? Well, very easy. We can play with the input to this function, the speed here. So let's add another random value, and let's say that we plug this one here and we do from 0 to 1. Now we get something like this. We can play with these values to get different range. So let's say from 0.1 to 0.5, something like this, and you get this effect. Of course, you can play with these values as much as you want, and you will decide how fast and how slow the range of speeds gets. So that will be how you can play with the animation here. What else do we want to do? Well, we want to create a controller for this value, and we would like, instead of everything moving together, like we see here, we would like things to move in a more random fashion because it's a lot more interesting. And that's exactly what we are going to do here. So How can we do this? Well, we already know this node, random value. Let's plug it in here into the factor. And as you can see, now we get some randomness here. But this will be very nice if it's controlled. So let's do an input. Control C, Control V. Let's take this node group from here and select these nodes and create a new group for them. And now we will add an add node. So let's plug this one here and expose this value here. And let's name this factor. Why not? And let's give it a value from 0 to 1. So now we have this factor that it's not exactly working right. Why is that? Because we have a 0 to 1 value. So that means that even if we are at 1, because we add a random value, some of the points will not be 1, will be something else. And if we go to 0, not all the points will be 0, so we can't get either of the position, either the randomized or the regular text go through completely. So we need to fix that. Let's put a map range here. We know that we have an input from 0 to 1. So let's see what output we want. Let's say at 0 we want the effect to be like this spread, and at 1 we want the letters to come out. So if we subtract 1 and we go to 1, we get this exact effect. At 1 we have the cloud spreading, and at 0 we have these elements back to normal. So I kind of explained this in a lot of tutorials, what's going on, why this is working. We have a 0 to 1 range coming as an input, and we output it to -1 to 1. So basically at the lowest setting we have -1, and we can have a maximum of 1 added. So at lowest setting we will get 0, meaning this value. And if we go to the top setting, we will have an input of 1, and we add 1, we get 2. And because this is plugged here, we get this spreading, especially if we don't use the clamp. So this is how this will work. Now we have a nice way to control this effect in the random fashion. Excellent. That will be kind of all for this. Let's look a little bit of on the material, because this is the next point that we want to take care of, the materials of this project. So let's do that. Let's go to the materials. I'm gonna save, and let's push this one to the shader editor and look at this material. I'm not gonna need this. And let's make this one smaller and see what we have here. If we select our material, the blue material, we can play with this. If you look at the demo, you may have noticed the fact that the letters here, okay, let me take this one out, have different colors and they shine. So let's fix the shining first. I'm gonna do bloom, it's activated, but I want to reduce the radius to something like 1.5 maybe. Switch this one to rendered, and let's delete this node and add a shader emission. I'm gonna plug this into the surface and switch this color to, let's say, blue, and do an 8 by 8. That's gonna be the value and the strength. And now we have an emission shader. How can we color this? Well, Let's add a converter color ramp. I'm gonna take this color and plug it here, for example, and let's put this one back to 1, plug this one here, and for this one let's choose something else, and let's choose this purplish color. Excellent. So now we have this factor that goes between this and this color, and let me put this on to 1 again, and we'll control this strength of the emission in another way. I'm gonna go to combine HYV and separate HYV. That means we will separate this color between hue, saturation, and values. So selecting these two nodes, press F to connect them, and now we can control the value separately. So let's do a converter math here. Switch this one to multiply and do 8. So now we get this. So how can we control this factor in a random fashion? We have this very nice node called input in the object info, and we have this random value. So if we plug this one here, we get this randomization. Awesome. And that will be the basis of this object shader. I want to show you how I did the material for the background. Let's let's go to the world shader, press dot to get this here, and I did some mixing of some textures here. I used a texture noise texture and the texture brick texture, and then I use another noise texture. So let's see how we can combine this. I did a color mix RGB, and I mixed between the brick texture and a color. So let's do like a blue here, a darker blue, and connect this one here. And now we can see the background here. But if we go here, let me quickly add a camera and do Control-Alt-0 to put the camera here, and also dim the things that are outside the camera, something like this. This is what we get in this position, and this is what we get on the other side. So I use this noise texture as a factor, and the way to control it is using a color ramp. I can plug it here, and let's do something like 11 for this and crush this color ramp to get something like this. And then we can play with the details, and we can play with the roughness, and as you can see, we get this this effect that you see here. And I did a few other things here. First, I play with these colors. I give it something like this for the first color, and for the mortar I did something like this, and for the second color, and the mortar was something like also a blue, something like that. And I wanted to play more with the colors from here. So the way to do this is, let's do another mix texture, mix color, plug this one here, and I use this noise texture as a factor here, and then I did like Control C, Control V, and do like a very dark color here, and this one Let's make it lighter. And when I play with this scale of this texture, like quite a lot, something like 1000. And if you want, you can play with the roughness and stuff, and also add a color ramp. So let me plug this one here and play a little bit with the values. And you get this kind of a grainy thing going on here. So this is how I achieve this material. GZZ to GZZ to take this camera a little bit. And that's kind of it for this effect. This is what I did till the end. I wanted to show you the materials. So thank you very much for watching this all the way through. Please leave in the comment section your impression if you prefer this version with the materials condensed or you want the old version with the materials on a separate video. I would kind of like to know what you want.